Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again with my co-host and Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man? How are you this Friday?
Hey, dude, how's it going? Friday, almost Gold Cup time. Wearing the Tigres shirt because at work they had like a sports Friday or whatever.
Yep.
So, of course, I have to show up my true colors. But yeah, I'm ready, dude.
Did anybody recognize the shirt?
Nah, well, I think now they do because I've worn it, a good amount of times. And I was really impressed because one of my coworkers, who I think he's Asian American, I don't know what kind of Asian, but I wore it once, and he was like, "Oh, you go for Tigres," and he told me the name of. I mean, I expect people to know maybe Andre Pierre, but I think he gave me the name of Jesus Angulo or something, like a random player,
Some
right?
random, yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And he's like, "Yeah, man. He was like, I don't really follow Liga MX. I only follow like the big teams, and I like Tigres." And I was like, "All right, cool, interesting."
Nice. Cool, man. Shout out to that guy if he's watching.
Will Le.
But all right. There you go. Shout out. Let's get into it, man. This is going to be the Gold Cup preview episode for La Selección Mexicana, eltri from Mexico, of course. Yeah, and let's get into it. Start off with the roster that jimmylozano did, quote unquote, called up. Did he really not call up because it was kind of from cocca's remnants? Who is actually on this roster here 2 days before their opening game, man? I know there's been a couple of changes with some players getting out from lesion or other reasons, or injury.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the final roster looking like? And how competitive do you see this roster?
All right, so very minimal changes from what we saw during Nations League, right? I mean, we all know that diegococca initially released a 30 something player list, and then he trimmed it down to 23 for Nations League and Gold Cup. From the, I guess, early list that they released, the biggest change was Alexis Vega, who got dropped because of a knee injury. Apparently, is worse than they anticipated. So they dropped him off, and they brought in Roberto Alvarado, El Piojo Alvarado from Chivas. Other than that, we keep the same roster with Antonio Rodriguez from Tijuana as a keeper, Julian Araujo from Barcelona as a right back, Cesar Montes from Espanyol as a center back, Edson Alvarez from Ajax as a center midfielder. With Edson Alvarez, though, it looks like they don't know if he's gonna be like, they don't know if he's gonna play tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Sunday against Honduras, because he has some like muscle. I guess something with his muscle. I don't know if it's just uncomfortableness, or some strain muscle, but he's not ready for Honduras, and it looks like they're probably gonna release him. So he goes and figures out his future with Ajax, because it looks like they're blocking a move to Dartmouth. So so we got Johan Vasquez from Cremonese as a center.
What a big vaca.
I know, dude.
What
That's
a
gonna be
big
a
drop
tough one
for Mexico. Yeah.
It'll be a tough one because he's one of the experienced players. He's definitely the best Mexican player right now, whether our club or with eltri. So it will be a tough one, but I think if I'm not mistaken, CONCACAF allows you to replace a player like before the group stage starts. And if you lose a player due to injury throughout the group stage, you can replace it before the quarterfinals if you manage your way to quarterfinals, right? So we'll see if I think they're gonna wait for him for this first match and then decide whether or not they want to risk him. But we'll see. I don't want to say that Mexico doesn't need him, but things are not too hot with Mexico right now, so they can definitely
they need all the help they can get.
Exactly. So going down the list real quick: Johan Vasquez, Gerardo Arteaga, Luis Romo, Charlie Rodriguez, Osi Herrera, as I said, Roberto Alvarado in replacing Alexis Vega, Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord, Luis Ángel Malagón from America as a keeper, Guillermo Ochoa from the Salernitana as a keeper, Eric Sanchez from Pachuca, Aurelio Antuna from cruzazul, Sebastián Córdoba from Tigres, the CEO of Sex, Orbelín Pineda from EK Athens, Luis Chávez from Pachuca, Jorge Sánchez from Ajax, Henry Martín from America, Israel Reyes from America, Víctor Guzmán from Monterrey, and Jesus Gallardo from Monterrey as well. So I think overall, this is the most competitive roster Mexico can put out there. Is definitely not, holding any grounds in terms of taking its A team to the Gold Cup. I mean, you can definitely add Chucky Lozano and Tecatito Corona here. Uh, God knows why Tecatito Corona is not here. We know that Adrian Lozano had like a BS injury, and he's most likely trying to figure out his future in Napoli.
Yeah,
But this is pretty much like this is the best that Mexico can do right now, essentially.
that's crazy. From those 23 players, only 8 euro based. Obviously, if
Uh
you
huh.
put Chucky Lozano and Tecatito, that'd be 10, but 8 out of 23 currently. Yeah, it's quite shocking to see
Mm-hmm.
that. Again, Mexico has always relied heavily on Liga MX. Some of their most potent and strongest Mexico squads of the past have been very Liga MX based, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's gotten to the point where CONCACAF especially has realized development of players is it's not in CONCACAF, it's not in Liga MX, it's not in MLS. That's a good place to develop to the highest levels of CONCACAF. But if you want to push further and get to the highest level, obviously the path is in Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
to see only 8 players of the 23 on Mexico's A teams, kind of it's shocking for sure. Jimmy Lozano has kind of had experience with many of these players before. He obviously coached the youth 20s in or is it U21s in the Olympics. Can't forget which U23 is one of those to qualify for the Olympics, right? It's a youth
Mm-hmm.
team with only three over 23 players. So he's coached a lot of these guys before. Um, what can you tell us about Jimmy Lozano that his preferred formation is, and what formation do you see him, starting with for this first match against Honduras?
Yeah. So as you correctly mentioned, he has managed, or he's well acquainted with a good amount of these players from his time in the under 23s and the Panamericanos and Tokyo 2020. On his last game as the under 23 coach, he played with a formation of 4-2-3-1. And his last formation consisted of Ochoa, Johan Vasquez, Cesar Montes, Jorge Sanchez, Jesus Angulo, who's not in this list, Luis Romo, Sebastián Córdoba, the CEO of SEX, Charlie Rodriguez, Alexis Vega, Diego Lainez, and Henry Martin. Now, of course, we don't have Alexis Vega, we don't have Diego Lainez, we don't have Jesus Angulo, but the rest of the players are actually eligible for Jimmy Lozano on the Gold Cup. So I think I'm assuming what we'll see is essentially the same backup line I guess, of course, the exception of Jesus Angulo as a left back. I think he is. I want him to play Gerardo Arteaga, but Gerardo Arteaga received a red card, and so I don't think he's eligible for this match. Don't quote me on this, but I'm not too sure if Gerardo Arteaga is actually eligible for this match, since I'm not too sure if Gold Cup is FIFA certified anymore. But I think he's going to play with Jesus Gallardo as a left back, Vasquez and Montes on center back, and then Jorge Sanchez as the right back. The two midfielders that he's going to play in the middle, I think, is going to be Eric Sanchez and Luis Romo, just because Edson Alvarez will not be eligible due to injury. The three, what you can call, well, what you can consider to be the attacking midfielders will be in the center, Luis Chavez, and then I think he's gonna. Well, sorry, I believe he's gonna put Sebastián Córdoba in the middle. He's gonna have Urel Antuna on one side, and then Roberto Alvarado on the other, and Henry Martin on the top. Now, there's a small caveat. I think either he has the ability to replace either Sebastián Córdoba or Eric Sanchez. I have the feeling that most likely we'll see Luis Chavez and Luis Romo as the center midfielders, and then we'll see Sebastián Córdoba as a center attacking midfielder. But if that is not the case, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Luis Chavez on that cam role, and then have Eric Sanchez and Luis Romo as the central midfielders.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd prefer to see, at least for the first couple of games, how Sebastián Córdoba leads that line of the camera roll. We saw Luis Chavez kind of do that,
Yeah.
and wasn't too hot against USA and Panama. And to clarify, Cesar Montes is out for 3 matches, and Gerardo Arteaga is out for 2 matches during the Gold Cup. Uh, La femexfut, La Federación Mexicana is appealing it, but based off what we saw in
Okay.
that match, I doubt it'll get appealed.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know that they just confirmed the suspensions for Serginho Dest and McKinney with
yeah.
3 and 2 respectively. So if that is the case, then most likely we'll see Victor Guzman instead of well, I think Victor Guzman, but it could be Israel Reyes or Victor Guzman instead of Cesar Montes. And then, as I said, if Herrera Ortega is out, then most likely the left back is going to be Jesus Gallardo because that's the only left back we have.
Um, as even if it's a Liga MX based, it's still a strong squad. It's still one of the clear favorites for this Gold Cup. Doesn't necessarily mean that Mexico is amazing. It just means that the CONCACAF Gold Cup competition is a lot lower than
Yes.
what
Yeah.
Mexico has.
Mhm.
So Mexico obviously one of the big favorites here with this squad. Let's talk about their group and who they opened up with. We kind of already mentioned they opened up against Honduras, but they're in a group with Honduras, Haiti, Haiti, and Qatar. That Qatar is the special invite guest.
Mhm.
They play Honduras, June 25th, Sunday. Then they play their second match against Haiti, June 29th, Thursday. And then they wrap up against Qatar next Sunday, July 2nd. Probably saving the hardest match for last in that group, but still a very manageable group, a group you'd expect Mexico to get out of. How do you see that group shaking up, and who do you see as their hardest competition there, man?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there shouldn't be any excuse for Mexico to top this group. Mexico should leave this group unscathed, and I just say this because of history, not necessarily because of the recent or the most recent history, but because of the statistics and overall history of Mexico in Gold Cup. But I think I have the feeling that Mexico and Qatar will move on. I feel Mexico will move on as the first and Qatar as the second. Honduras, I know it isn't like I know a lot of about Honduras, but I've been hearing that they also have a lot of turmoil within their national team with changing coaches on a whim, and then the most recent coach decided to just get rid of all those players those like legacy players who have been with Honduras for I don't know how many years now. So he's essentially just calling up either fairly recent national, or I guess players who would with less than 3 games under the belt with the Honduras national team, and players with pretty much no experience playing for the national team. So it's gonna be interesting to see that match on
Wow.
Sunday because we're gonna have two teams at at different stages of distress, but with a very common or similar situation where they're not in the graces of La Afición. So I think Mexico and Qatar will move on.
Okay. Um, let's talk about the other groups here briefly.
Mhm.
Group B or Group A consists of Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, United States, and St. Kitts and Nevis. We predicted in our U.S. Preview United States going to go through unscathed, 9 points, with Jamaica as the potential dark horse in this competition,
I agree.
getting second. Group B, as we mentioned, Honduras, Haiti, Mexico, Qatar. Group C, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Panama, Martinique. And Group D, Canada, Cuba, Guatemala, and Guadalupe. We again group how we see the groups shaking out. Group A, U.S., Jamaica. Group B, Mexico. You're saying Qatar. I think in my U.S. preview I said Honduras, but
Yes.
I think that could go either way. Panama, Costa Rica. Sorry, that could go either way. Though now that you're kind of convinced me that Qatar is probably the stronger team. On Group C, I said Panama, Costa Rica. You said Panama, uh, or did you said Panama, Costa Rica as well
Yeah, yeah.
for
On
that
that
one?
one, I say Panama,
Yeah.
Costa Rica.
And Group D, Canada, Guatemala. I think we both were in accordance or in agreement there. So the quarters, how do the quarters shape up, assuming those 8 teams qualify? So quarterfinal one would be winner of Group D, which would be Canada, versus runner-up of Group A, Jamaica. That one is interesting. That one I feel can be one of the biggest surprises and biggest most even matches. One of the first most even matches of this game or this
Yeah.
tournament. Jamaica again is one of the dark horses. They have recently tapped into a lot of potential, a lot of quality players. Those of which being either born in England that can represent Jamaica based off the Commonwealth, or vice versa, born in Jamaica that could represent England and kind of grew up in the uh, English unders, the reserve teams on many English sides in the Premier League or Championship out there in England. And as they were born in Jamaica, they can represent Jamaica. So they've been kind of calling in a lot of players like that play in the Championship, uh, Bundesliga, Bundesliga 2, Serie A, Serie B, just all throughout Europe. So they could be a potential dark horse. And I think I had them in my USA preview as the Canada winning, but you had Jamaica. So I think that could go either way, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, Group B, or sorry, the quarterfinal 2, Mexico versus Costa Rica. I think we both agree that this is not the same Costa Rica as before. And even though Mexico is struggling, they should be able to, put this one away. Maybe 2-1, two
Yeah.
nil, Mexico.
I I think this is the other one that we have like a small disagreement where I think you put Panama in here. I am actually saying that Panama will move on as top of the group and Costa Rica's runner up. So that's why I have Mexico Costa Rica on our previous episode. I think you said Mexico Panama.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think regardless, we think Mexico's going to win against this
Yeah,
in this
he
matchup.
should.
Yeah. The third quarterfinal, USA Guatemala, which USA should not have a problem with, and then the fourth quarterfinal would be Panama and Qatar. That one could be a potential close match as well.
That's a close. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I think I had Panama going through, and you had Qatar. So we're gonna go with yours since this is the Mexico episode, and you're the Mexico expert. So semifinal here, we have Canada against Mexico and USA versus Qatar. Canada against Mexico. That should be a really good match. Canada obviously
Yeah,
did not bring their full lineup, right? They brought kind of A/B team, more B team, I would say, more MLS players. They obviously don't have Fonzie Davies. They don't have Clyde Laren. They don't have Jonathan
Eustachio.
David, Eustachio. They have a couple of their classic, backbone players that are always there, like Osorio, but not the whole lineup. But I just think Mexico, having brought their A team, just edges it out, maybe 2-1 as well. What do you think in score prediction for that one?
I think Mexico will, yeah, edge it out by the minimum. It's going to be like a 1-0, 2-1 kind of situation. I don't think it's going to be, a bulldozer or Mexico bulldozing Canada in any way. I know that this is Canada's B team, but I just don't see how Mexico will I guess sink and start playing as you know at the top of their game like they did back in 2014.
Yeah, probably going to be like I said, the minimal difference here that
Mhm.
causes the winner. The other one, I think USA should be Qatar. They might give USA some trouble if they bring up their starting World Cup squad. Not to say they performed amazing Qatar in the World Cup, but it might be enough to trouble this B/C team for the USA. But I still think ultimately the USA goes through, leading to once again for who knows how many times out of the tournament's legacy, Mexico versus USA final. The one that the fans want to see, the one that CONCACAF wants to see, because it obviously leads them to the most money. So we're thinking, though Mexico's struggling, they'll still make it to the final. And what do you think, man? How do you think this final plays out?
Um, just like we said on the previous episode, I think it's going to be a interesting match. It's it's gonna be I think it will be a difficult pill to swallow for Mexican fans, especially if the U.S. MNT puts up a strong fight against Mexico's A team, and that'll just be a testament of how much distance, how big of a gap there is between both programs, right? How much the USMNT has advanced in the last 20 years, and how have they toppled over Mexico as the biggest team in CONCACAF. And it will also be, a sense of, I guess, crude reality for Mexico to really understand, what's their place currently in CONCACAF and in the overall scheme of world soccer, world football. So I hope that Mexico wins this match, but man, I don't know. I have the feeling that it's going to be a very close match, and they're probably going to go all the way to penalty kicks, and history says that Mexico loses on those. So
Yeah, no, I think we agree it's going to be a very close match, and
mhm.
I don't know, man. I have a feeling that I'm the USA guy, but I have a feeling that Mexico won't let it be 4 tournaments in a row. I think Jimmylozano is going to resonate with this squad. He's going to get them playing better. Obviously, he's not going to get them playing to the level that they can play to the top level overnight. He's not going to fix all the problems overnight. But I think as the tournament progresses, they'll be playing. They'll start playing better, and I think they'll take it. And granted, the Mexican media won't give them the accolades, right? Probably deservedly so. They'll be saying, and they're already saying, if Mexico wins, it's going to be against the Canada B team, a USA B team. So don't applaud them if they win, more or
Yeah,
less. But I think it's an appropriate and necessary stepping stone for Mexico to get back to their best. That they need to win this, and I think ultimately they do lo logran. They win it. Yeah, that's kind of how we see it, man. Anything you want to add as we wrap this up, man?
no, not really. I mean, if you want to get, your tinfoil hat on, there's a lot of talk saying that CONCACAF is pissed at Mexico for, how they're behaving and the low numbers of attendance on the Nations League, uh, you know, uh, third place match, and of course the final. So there's a lot of people saying that maybe CONCACAF will, nudge things into Mexico's direction for the time being, so the fan can go back and reignite that connection with eltri. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how the Houston people or Houston family will react for this Sunday match. I know that a lot of people already bought tickets. For they've been available for a while now. So I know that a lot of paisanos like to get ahead of the game and get the tickets as soon as they come out. So I'm interested to see uh, if people are like, what, screw this, I'm willing to lose my money on this ticket rather than keep on supporting El Tri, or if they're just gonna show up and start doing the chant that no one likes.
Yeah. That's funny because you bring up not the chant but the ticket thing in Houston. A cousin of mine bought them as soon as they released, and then the whole USA versus Mexico thing and US and Panama versus Mexico thing happened. And he was like, "Nah, man, I need to sell this shit. I'm not gonna go." Blah blah blah. Shout out to La Curva for falling
Hey,
victim to
hell
Mexico's.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man. As we wrap up here, where can our listeners find us?
Dude, you can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, be sure to follow us and let us know in the comments how far do you see Mexico going in this tournament? Do you see them winning at all? Do you think it's necessary for the the advancement of Mexico, or the recovery process of Mexico to must win to win this tournament? Who do you think is going to be the biggest opposition in the group stage for Mexico? We definitely like to hear from you guys and like interacting with you guys in the comments for sure. Adrian, man, it's going to be a busy weekend of football.
Yeah.
Gold Cup starting, obviously. We're going to get to watching. So see you in the next one, brother.
Take it easy. See ya.
See you, man. See ya.